Hey folks, welcome to the Daily Dude. This one's coming out late or early, depending on where you're at. I'm sure it's still May the 10th somewhere. Technical difficulties. That's all I'm going to say about that. Let's take a look at our random fact about you.
Fact number one. I love the Muppets. So, as a kid, PBS was my favorite channel on TV. I don't know why, it just was. Maybe it's because that's what my mom always turned on, but I love Sesame Street and the Muppets and all that great stuff. So, yeah, I love the Muppets. I hate Jim Henson is dead. He died when I was 4 or 5. Yeah, that sucked. But, they're still pretty good. They're not as good as when he was alive, though, because that group of people, they were hilarious.
Hey, I love the Muppets too! This is great! And as always, you'll find a link to her 30 Random Facts About Me video and her channel below. Also, she just put out a garden update, so go have a look. For our first video, let's head on down to the Texas Boys.
Alright, and then this is another secret ingredient. If you don't know what Mycorrhiza is, but Mycorrhiza is a beneficial fungi. They call it the internet of plants, and this increases root structure, but it is a organic root enhancer. But this is what allows the plant's root structure. They've done a lot of studies with this, and it increases plant root structure by over 50%. So this is good stuff.
Everybody growing food needs to know what mycorrhiza is, even if I mispronounced it. It's also a good idea to put trace minerals and rocks like azomite, and this is a good video explaining how they're setting up their growing system. Growing food for your animals by the Texas Boys.
The Texas dad nails it when he calls Mycorrhiza, the fungus, a food network. It's like McDonald's for whatever plant it is that's growing. It's like McDonald's. It's going out, it's getting potatoes here, it's getting beef there, it's getting lettuce here, it's getting tomatoes there, and it's compiling it all in one place and making it available to, in our case, the general public. But in the soil's case, it's making it available to the plants that you're growing. That mycorrhiza, that fungus, is essential to healthy gardens. Now, you can grow stuff without mycorrhiza, but it's not going to grow as well as if it's in there. What happens when you till is you kill that fungus and that mycorrhiza, so that weakens your soil. So anyway, he hit the nail on the head. Now, our next 3 videos come from I Am Organic Gardening, Mark over there. Just very knowledgeable, smart, genius. I really enjoy his video. So we'll take a look at the next 3 videos, and hopefully he can explain it better than me. I was a C student in biology in high school, so I'm not the brightest when it comes to sciences. I did get a perfect score on the ACT test on math, so I'm not a complete dummy. But let's go listen to Mark, who knows a lot more than I do about organic gardening.
So I used 50 pounds of winter rye last November. So starting with December, January, February, March, and April, for 5 months now, I've been growing soil, which has been taking sunlight, fueling the plant. That takes carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and forces that carbon dioxide in the ground as liquid carbon and feeding the soil, thus growing soil. And the best thing is that we do not have to rototill all this in. We can just simply cut it level to the ground. If you rototill it, you're killing all the work that you did for 5 months. You're releasing, you're cutting up the roots, you're cutting up the mycorrhizal fungi, you're inducing more air in the soil, so all that green manure that you think you're putting back on the ground, you are chopping up and fueling that system 10 times larger than it should be, and it's going to eat all that green grass and release it as carbon dioxide, and you're going to have nothing that you achieved. And this can be done in 2 weeks. If you once you rototill it in, everything that you accomplish is gone in 2 weeks.
Mark at Organic Gardening is just a wonderful and useful source of information. Please go check out his channel and these 3 videos, including this one, How to Grow Dirt to Healthy Soil in No-Till. Here we get an overview of his cover crops, those rows or cover crops where he will plant squash and larger plants into, which is why the rows are a little bit wider than normal.
So what we have growing in our raised beds right now is we have some annual ryegrass, some winter rye, some crimson clover, red clover, and alfalfa. So this one particular row is 2 feet wide and 300 feet long, and you can see that in the 2 foot wide section, they have anywhere from 5 to 7 different types of plants growing. They're not competing for nutrients. They're not worried about shading. They're doing fine. They're all working together to grow soil, to increase the fungal to bacterial ratio in my soil for healthier plants. When I go to plant my vegetable plants in here, this is going to be pretty much designated to different types of squashes this coming spring.
True no-till gardening, growing and building soil for homesteading vegetables is another great video.
Now planting into it, we're just going to open it up. Now, high-tech tool we're going to use is a putty knife. Now we're just going to place it into the soil and then pull back on it. And this way we're only compressing one side. Now we just take our transplant and place it right there. Give it a nice little tug in the soil, and we're all set. You'll be amazed how quickly they grow. The roots from the winter rye are there for a reason. That's the tillage in your soil. That's naturally tilling the soil. This plant, I know it's a brassica, does not use mycorrhizal fungi, but it needs to have a healthy soil for it to get nutrients, because it doesn't rely on that mycorrhizal fungi. It relies on root hairs, and I did a separate video on that. So all these nutrients that are floating around the soil that are being released can go to that plant now through those root hairs on the plant.
Just like in nature, mimicking nature, cover crops is what builds soil. And specifically, the mycorrhiza and fungus that the cover crops feed. It feeds the fungus. The fungus acts as McDonald's and goes out and gets the nutrients from everywhere. It gets the nitrogen, potato chips from here. It gets the phosphorus, their soda from here. It gets its potassium, the beef from here, and that fungus feeds and creates soil, just like in nature, mimicking nature. And that's why, you know, on a large scale, with all of our cornfields and soybean fields and everything else that just sit there naked for months and months and months, it's not feeding the soil. We're just we're killing it. We're killing the soil instead of feeding the soil by letting it sit there naked for all those months, when you could be growing a cover crop and building the soil, and then, as you just saw, planting right into that cover crop, which then provides you all kinds of benefits. It prevents weeds. It helps aerate the soil. It tills for you. The cover crop tills for you. It leaves air pockets in the soil so that roots have oxygen, and so when it rains, those air pockets will fill with water. So it acts like a sponge, whereas if you till it, it compacts all together within a matter of, sure, it fluffs it up for a little while, but as soon as it rains a few times, it's compacted into like a brick, and there are no more air pockets. There's nowhere for the water to go, and that's why it runs off the top and into our creeks and into our rivers and into our lakes, and so that's my big pet peeve on the mass scale, is leaving that ground naked all those months, which happens all over the Midwest where I am at. Now our last video, who wants to see a side-by-side comparison between having a cover on the soil versus not having a cover on the soil after 7 months? Let's take a look.
Because now I can show you the difference between covering your soil with cardboard on the left-hand side compared to no cardboard on the right-hand side. And you can definitely see the difference. The right-hand side is not failing by any means, but it could be better. And that's what the left-hand side is showing you. With that ½ inch of covering of cardboard and growing that winter rye that gives a taller presence in there, grabbing more sunlight and more carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere and feeding that soil, you're going to get a better garden. And
if you want a better garden, take a look at this video. Coffee grounds, cardboard, and seeds.
Now, I'm not a big fan of cardboard, but it's hard to argue with those results. That just shows you what covering the soil can do. Sure, you can till, you can leave it naked, you can just plant straight into it, and you'll get the results on the right. But if you use any number of methods of covering the ground, you can get the results on the left, which were much better. And there are many ways to do covering. And I've explained this before. The Back to Eden gardening, using mulch, using cover crops, using fabric, plastic. You just need to have some type of covering to help the soil, and specifically to help the fungus, the mycorrhiza. That's what we're trying to accomplish with the cover, is to put the life back into the soil, the life that's killed when we till that soil. Now, I should probably say, your garden needs to be naked at some point. You're going to be putting new crops in there, and that's why the Mychorrhiza had a great question on one of my videos, and so I guess, I don't know, there's a lot of ins and outs to this stuff, isn't there, coming from a C biology student. But there are a lot of ways to cover, and you can flame weed, and then, you know, at that point your garden is naked. But after you flame weed, there are lots of options. You can put mulch, you can do the wood chips, you can do the landscaping fabric, you can put down cover crops, which will grow really fast. Now these methods, a video I showed yesterday of AZ Farms building the raised garden bed. Now you can go out and buy this stuff. You can go out and buy compost. You can go buy, like the Texas Boys did, you can go buy the Mycorrhiza to add to it, and all you're doing is you're purchasing nature instead of mimicking nature, and that works too. You have to provide those nutrients. Those are essential for growing food, but those nutrients are more available when the fungus is going out and creating that food network for your vegetables. So happy vegetable gardening. This is going to be another 20-minute long. And now what some of you might have been waiting for, what is the origin story behind the name Peoria Dude? Well, yesterday, random fact number 9 was, I'm a big fan of the Chicago Cubs, and I talked about the Peoria Chiefs being a minor league affiliate of the Cubs. Well, as being a big Cubs fan, I was participating on a Chicago Cubs fan website, and I needed a an avatar, a nickname to use while commenting over there. And so I thought back to when I was living in Sacramento, California, in the Oak Park neighborhood. There was a guy that I became friends with, and as I was getting to know him, he was saying, he was wondering where I was from, and so he said something like, "You're pretty laid back. Are you from L.A.? You're pretty laid back." And I said, "No, I'm from Peoria." And so he said, "Oh, so you're like the Peoria dude, like the Lebowski laid-back dude from Peoria." And so that's where the Peoria dude nickname came from a friend in Sacramento. And because I needed a nickname monitor avatar to use on a Chicago Cubs fan website, I picked that one. And Chicago Cubs fans know that Peoria was once a minor league affiliate of the Cubs, so it got me, more noticed. I don't know, more recognized. People knew Peoria because they were Cubs fans, because they knew all the players. Now it's a Cardinals fan affiliate in Peoria, and that's just bad. Okay, enough of this. Take care. Never leave your garden naked for very long, and always use a wind filter.